let's record from here. So in this exercise, and I'll just quickly go back, we had a Word document where we have 2 pages that we have to work on, and there's a few things that we have to do in those pages. Sorry, it's very small in this thing here. We can make it a little bit bigger. But in the first page, we had a table, and we had some blue stuff, and we had to do some column spanning, and we had to do some formatting of the text. Some of it had to be centered, some of it had to be left. And all of that's in here. Now, what we've got is like J7 is a H1. Samsung, I think, is a H2. Then we've got our image there. These are just P's. And then we've got our table. And we've got a heading at the top, which does a column span. And then we've got headings down the side. So in our table, well, let's go through the styles and see what we had to do to get there. So first thing is, it was required here, it said that we should use sans serif for all of the text. And so that's done here in a body tag. So in the CSS refers to the body. The entire body is set to sans serif. And it says something about the color. Now, what this 555 number, that is kind of a gray. And if you look in your Word document closely, you'll see this is not black, it's kind of a gray. For H1 and H2, so over here, we're putting those headings right up against the edge, and so we've got the margin set to 0. The H1, the color is a blue color, so we've done that. H2, we've made the font size small, and you can see that there. So Samsung comes out as quite small. In the table, we've done a border collapse, and that's the difference between having the table with the 2 lines in it or having the table with just 1 line. And so we've got the 1 line. To do that, we do the border collapse. You can see that more clearly there. So yeah, so we need, there's also some extra spacing around the text. So how that's achieved with a padding. So that would be in the table. So if we look at the table, we'll see that the padding is here. Padding of 5 pixels in the table heading and the table detail. That will get us that spacing around the digits. Notice also there's to get the top line, we are going to have to give it an ID and then style that ID separately. And that's done, it's called main. And so if you look at the table, when you start in the table, the first thing that we do is for the first row in the table, we make it a header, we make it a column span of 2, so it goes across 2 columns, and we call it main. And then we're able to style it in the heading with the hash. Main means that this is an ID. When you see hash, that means an ID. And what we're doing here is we're aligning the text to the center. We're giving it this blue color, and we're giving it a font weight of 1000. Now, the default font weight, or what to start with, default weight is 400. So a default weight of 1000 is kind of a heavy font weight. And that's what that looks like, right? By the way, so you might be saying there, oh yeah, Mark, it's very easy for you to sit there and say the default weight is that. How do you know? How, or more importantly, how do students know? Because they don't have a teacher there sitting beside them while they're doing this. How on earth are you going to know? Anybody got an answer? How would you know that the font weight is that? What does the font weight 1000 mean? Anybody got an idea? How would you know? How would I know? Did I memorize that? Well, no, because you don't have to memorize a lot of stuff to do websites. What you do is you find resource that will tell you, and there's a really great resource that will tell you. It's called W3 Schools. So you should go, if you see something here and you don't know what it means, go to W3 Schools in the HTML and just have a look there and see what see how they can help you. So if you go to W3 Schools, and don't know what this font weight stuff is all about, right? So I think it was font weight we're looking at, right? Yeah, I think so. So where's my W3 Schools? Somehow I got back into Zoom. So I'm just going to go in W3 Schools, and I'm going to go font weight because I want to use my font weight. And there it is. It talks about the property, how we use it. Like we used font weight of 1,000. There's an example of 900, which is kind of thick. And it tells you a lot of stuff there, right? Okay, so 400 is the same as normal. 700 is bold. So 1,000 is really bold. And as I said, I'm not expecting you to memorize that. I am expecting you to be able to use resources that are available to you, like Google, like especially like W3 Schools, and find answers as you sort of go along. So I'm expecting you to do that. Right, so back to what we were looking at. Yeah, so that's what you need to do there. Do you see that there's in the head? Be careful with this. I saw a couple of people. Make sure that you always get the right title. So if you're working on product details, put that title there, because when that shows up in the, when it shows up as a, I'm going to close these now. Where are you? Not that one, or different one, different window, right? Must be in this window, right? Or I closed it. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's in a different browser. It's in Firefox. But if you look, can you see this is where the title goes? All right. So that's kind of important. Oh, I did have product details. It's kind of important that we actually put that title in our document in the heading, in the head, not heading. Heading is different than head, right? So in the head, we need to put a title. We need to have 2 style tags, and then you have all of that code in there. That does the table. It also, all of that does the second page, which is another table. So we've got 2 tables going on here, right? How's this one? Oh, and we have a special heading too. All right, so but that's a different page. So let's go and look at the other page. Actually, come to think of it, this is kind of cool because these 2 pages are styled very differently. Welcome, Eve. So kind of late though, but you're always welcome. So let's look at the other page, which is the contact support page. Contact support page, a little different. Let's have a look at the code. What we got there is we've got a big table mostly, but we've also got a bunch of H1 that are used throughout it. And the H1 appears differently. So this is only the Word document. But if you look at it in the browser, what you'll see, and I need to be in the contact support, you'll see that the headings are like this. They're big blue letters, and they have a nice little border at the bottom of them. Okay, and then another thing that we've got that we did before is we got in the table, we've got a row span. I've already done that. So that's no problem there. So this is the business that you got. So how did we achieve that? Hopefully you guys are aware of what's going on here in the table. So it's saying in this table, Amani's here, in this table, and I can show it on the Word document. Yeah, in this table, what we've got is we've got 3 headings: service, mobile, and landline. Those are 3 headings. And the service is not affected. I mean, it's allowed to work, however. But the mobile and the land column, they are going to be styled separately. And so that's how they look in the body of the table. But if you look at how did we style them, how we style them is we've got this little bit going on down here. Now, the dot land call and the dot TF call. What the dot means is that is a class. And if you look back in the table, you'll see that, yeah, these are classes. We set two classes, the TF call and the land. Oh, well, you can see it all on the same page there. The TF call is the class for, I guess, for the mobile, and the land call is for the landline. But they're both styled the same to give a fixed width of 150 pix. So what does that do? If you look at the table, I've got a window here, which this document is in. I'm going to try and move that window, yes, and change the size of it. So there's our table. If I change the size of the window, do you see what happens? The mobile and the landline columns do not change in width. They are fixed width columns. However, the service changes in width, and how that happens is because if you look, you'll notice that the table takes up the full width of the container in which it is, which is the body. If you look at the text, look at the body in the HTML, you'll see the table takes up almost the entire body. The table tag starts there, and it doesn't end until almost towards the end. We've got a little bit of stuff towards the bottom, but the table is taking up most of it. But it definitely takes up the entire width. Now, how does it take up the entire width? Well, we instruct it in the CSS to take up the entire width, and that's done here. We say the table takes up the entire width. The table takes up 100% of the window, or the container in which it is, which is the body. The table's in the body, and it takes up 100% of the width. And that's why when I stretch and shrink it, the table is taken up 100% of the width. But the other two columns, there's two columns in the table which do not stretch. So that leaves only one column which is not fixed. That's the service column, and so it's going to stretch because the table has to stretch. And so that is achieved by those few things. The width of the table is 100%. Service is left alone, but the two columns that have numbers in them, we give them a fixed width. Okay, so what else is going on in there? There's nothing new else in there. I think the row span we did in a previous lesson. Oh yes, we got our headings. So let's go back to those headings. Our T1 heading, our H1 heading, call us. We see how call us is. It's this nice big blue thing, and it's got a nice little underline on it. Well, how does that happen? Well, let's see how H1 is styled. So if we go up and look at the CSS for H1, where are you? There you go. We'll see that we've got this thing called a border bottom, and it's 2 pix. That's giving us this line. All right. We also see the font weight is 200. That's the weight of the call us, and that's kind of gives us this. For a very big letter, it's kind of skinny, and I did a thing in W3 schools to show you that a second ago. The color is just this blue color. Now we got a margin top 50 pix. That means that if you look at each one of these H1s, we've got a bit of space above them, which has not been created by using a BR or anything like that. We've just said that, well, you're going to have 50 pix space above, which is free. And so that's what's doing there. The margin top is 50 pix. Anything else in there? I think that's it. The table has a margin at the bottom of 20 pix, so you can't have anything close to the bottom of the table. There's 20 pix between the bottom of the table and the next bit of text or anything else. Kind of it. That's so the CSS you can consider as the programming that makes the page look the way we want it to look. And how do we program it? We use the tags, for example, the body tag, table tag, th tag, or we can use classes and IDs. And we've used both of those here, right? Oh, well, in the previous, in the product details, I think we used the ID. Here we used classes. Classes, we start with a dot, and then the name of the class. If you go back to the product details, that's where we used an ID. IDs we identify with a hash. So we can do programming and styling on tags just by naming the tag. We can do it on IDs, which are things that are with an ID. What we've done is we've taken a tag and we've given it a special name, and that's to separate it from other tags that might be like it. So if you look at the table, what we've got is we've got lots of table headings, but we want one table heading to be to stand out and be different than the others. So we give it an ID so that we can treat it in a different way. And likewise, he has just arrived. Likewise, in the contact support, we've got two columns that we want to stand out, so we can treat them in a different way. And so what do? In those two columns, we identify them as being part of a class, and then each of those classes we can treat in a special way. And there you go. So this was mostly about CSS. CSS is our programming of the way that the table looks. We did our CSS separately. Each file has its own CSS, and that's good in this exercise because they're actually quite different. The way that we organized those tables was different in the two different files. If you were going, I think I'm going to stop talking at that point and see if there's any questions. I'm going to